The following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
Thank you, Tally Olson. I am back. You are comfortably zoned with me, the Zigzag Man, in Alameda, California, right across the bay from San Francisco, across the moat from Oakland. And I'm just enjoying life, especially today, because I got my old buddy as a guest, Peter Tronk. Welcome back to the network. Welcome back to Comfortably Zoned, the podcast.
Thank you, Ralph. It's a pleasure to be with you. It really is. And every chance I get, I jump at it. And like I said, it's great. It's great to be back.
Oh, good. Because we always have a lot to catch up on. And
we do.
One of the things we're both catching up on is life after Ronnie. And it will never be the same. Talk to Ronnie Rabinovich, in your words, Peter.
Yeah, you know, it's not a day go. It really isn't. I know it's a cliche. A day doesn't go by that I don't think of him, because when I go on online, I'm always reminded of him. I have pictures of him in my that I've saved, and every time I do one of my shows, Dodger Baseball Chronicles, his picture's not only there, but his, you know, the whole show is set up around him and his friendship with Jackie Robinson, and et cetera, et cetera. And, you know, it's getting easier and easier. I was stunned when it happened, and now it's wearing off. I guess that's normal for a human. I still miss him terribly. I always will miss him. But the pain is getting less and less. Thank God.
Yes. It's a grieving process has a completion, and it's there for a purpose. We both got our cathartic memories out of the way when we did a tribute show to him on the network. Yeah. Shortly after he passed.
Yeah, and I did one on mine too with Robert Cole on Dodger Baseball Chronicles. It was a catharsis. It was, it just had to be done. That's all.
Yeah. Rest in peace, Ronnie. You absolutely, you were the heart of Comfortably Zoned Network. It wasn't a network until I was doing a series. I was doing podcasts, and I talked to him about his journey with since he was 10. He was a friend of Jackie Robinson.
Yeah. And
I did a show with him that I post as an archive show every now and again.
Yeah.
And I realized that I had so much more to offer the baseball world and life than just a few podcasts here and there. And he inspired me. He was one of those people, you were too, that inspired me to make it a network and to get a whole bunch of people. First step, Peter Golenbach agreed to to a weekly show, and I mean, that legitimized the whole shooting match in my head. Mm-hmm. And we went from there. I remember speaking to you for a long time. You resisted even being a guest on the podcast. And wow, you took to it so incredibly naturally that, and our first shows, we did a Dodger show together We did New York, reminiscing about New York. I remember we had the guy from Cat's Deli. Was it Cat?
Carnegie Deli.
Carnegie Deli. Ah, okay. Carnegie Deli. And we captured the spirit of New York on a series of shows that all archived, incidentally, on YouTube. 3,000 plus, 3,100 plus shows are archived.
That's great.
And they're always there, and people could, and they always will be. I'm hoping that everything doesn't blow up, the internet. I mean, I'm hoping that years later people could go to these shows and get an idea of what baseball was like, what life was like in New York, what life is like in a crazy Jew's head. It's not easy doing it sometimes, but the satisfaction is immense. So, and thank you for joining me in the journey. I really appreciate
you're quite welcome. And I was, in fact, hesitant in the beginning because I had no confidence. I didn't know how I was going to come off on the air, and I didn't know if I would freeze up or whatever. But you spoke eloquently 60 seconds ago when you said I took to it. I did. I surprised myself. I took to it so well that you gave me my own show, and then I broke off and I do my own video show on YouTube, Dodger Baseball Chronicles. But it all started with you, and yes, Ronnie was a big factor in that. And talking about these shows will be here long after we're gone. I certainly hope so. I don't see why not. And people can listen to them whenever, 20 years from now, 30 years from now, whatever, and say, wow.
Absolutely.
That's really cool.
It'll be longer than that because they'll develop technologies to keep the shows alive. And we're part of chronicling baseball history and the history of people who grew up in the best era of America. I mean, in the 50s, early 50s, hope sprung eternal for people. It was post-war, and it was a lot simpler. Yet, when you think of Harry Truman and Hiroshima and all of that, it wasn't that simple. People say, well, life in the 50s was this and that. No, it wasn't. There was a big adjustment, a big post-war adjustment.
I think the reason why, excuse me, Ralph, but I think the majority of the folks that we talk to online and stuff, those people that say, oh, life was so great in the 50s, life was so simple. Well, of course it was simple. You were 10 or 11 or 12 years old. You didn't have to have a job. You didn't have to pay taxes. You didn't have to go to work. All you did was come home from school and play. You put your sneakers on and went out and played ball, and if it was the winter time, you went out and played in the snow. Whatever. Of course it was simple. But just think of this. Imagine being black back then, when you couldn't drink from the same water fountain as the white people, and you couldn't use the same restroom as the white people. And I could go on and on and on. So, sometimes people think of, when I was young, when in the 50s, those days were great. They weren't really great. They were just easy on you. Right.
And, that philosophy of just coming home and playing and, no brains, no headaches type thing, is kind of nice. I've lived that way my whole life.
I knew you were going to get around to saying something like that. That's funny. I saw what, at an early age, I saw what traditional work that, unless you were working at something that you loved, it would tear you up. And the labor management situation has always made the process of going to work horrible for the majority of people. And I wanted to avoid the traditional way of hooking into the system. And fortunately, I was able to fall between the cracks a little bit. And with an incredible amount of luck, I reached the age that I am. I still marvel at the fact that I got to live my life expectancy. I'm in my 77th year, and that's what we were expected to live to. That's what they told us.
That's what they told us. So, and I wasn't going to do the things that could easily screw it up. And a lot of that was just survival instincts and what have you. But, boy, a lot of it was luck because, just... Well,
Red Barber used to say, luck is the residue of design. So, you can give yourself a few pats on the back. You don't have to chalk it all up to luck.
Yeah. But you got to know enough to cross the green, not to be hit by a bus. So, and it's not lucky when you don't get hit by the bus. It's unlucky when you do get hit by the bus.
Oh, yeah.
So life goes on, Peter. Let's talk about something that we discussed on the internet when Ebbets Field Flannels, a company that makes vintage equipment. We're both so interested in uniforms and jackets, and we're Walter Middies, and we want to feel the way ball players, we want to know everything about a ball player's experience. Coming down from the caps that we wear on our heads and the clothing that we wear, we want it to be authentic and fun to wear. And that has become an incredible business.
It has.
I passed the picture on to you. An ad, Ebbets Field Flannels has an ad going for an old vintage sweater. And when I was a kid, I'd always see pictures, Honus Wagner and those guys, Casey Stengel, would be wearing vintage sweaters, these big, heavy, they preceded starter jackets and warm-up jackets and what have you.
Right.
And I loved those sweaters. And I always hoped that somebody like Ebbets Field Flannels would reproduce these things in a great quality with the same wool and the same design. And they did.
Yes, they did.
Guess what? $400.
Yeah, $395. It's a little steep, but you know what? $395. A little steep for me, but I'm going to tell you this. Here's what I'm going to say. Their caps are $54. That's steep for me. I'll speak for myself. Their jerseys are $225 and up. That's steep for me. Their jackets are $595. Okay, they're satin jackets. Wow. $595. So
Yeah.
And here's what I'm going to say. When you're in a business like this and you don't have these things made in Vietnam or places like that, you have this guy makes them in Seattle, Washington, and they're made by craftsmen. If you ordered one of those sweaters, Ralph, it would take 4 to 6 weeks because they would make it for you. They wouldn't go in the back room, in the stock room, and pull out a sweater, fold it up, and mail it to Ralph Tycho. They would make it, okay? And these are not just high school dropout teenagers that make it. These are craftsmen. So these people are not paid $9 an hour. So there's money up front there. Plus, like you said, they use the real wool, quote unquote, real wool, and they do a great job. Everything is perfectly done. I mean, it's a perfect replica. And in many cases, not all cases, but in many cases, the sweater is one of them, they have to pay the license fee to Major League Baseball. Major League Baseball gets a cut of everything that's born. When you walk down the street to walk your dog tonight, and you see a kid in a athletics uniform top jersey, whatever he paid for that, it doesn't matter what he paid for it. Some of that money went to MLB. They have a license, just like you and Tally can't start selling beer out of your house. You need a liquor license, which costs a lot of money. We're talking $1 million. So Jerry Cohen, the owner of Ebbets Field Flannels, has to pay that money. Now, another company, Mitchell and Ness, which were around before Ebbets Field Flannels, made the greatest, and still do. They make the greatest major league stuff, not minor league stuff. They make the great major league stuff. I remember when I was a young man in my 20s, I saw an ad for authentic major league jerseys on a certain street in Philadelphia. I lived in South Orange, New Jersey. I got in my car one Saturday and just drove down the turnpike until I saw the turnoff for Philadelphia, got off the turnpike and drove into Philadelphia and found the store. This is before GPS. This is before all of that stuff. I just found the store, went inside and bought a Warren Spahn jersey for $100.
And now I'll tell you what the store was. The store was Pearson's Sporting Goods Store.
Okay.
And I went to summer camp with the Pearson brothers, Craig Pearson, Billy Pearson, and I think there were only two. But I encouraged the mother to reproduce and have a third brother. I remember I was right on the cusp of that. No, that wasn't true. But Craig Pearson became a physician and a team doctor in spring training. He lived in Mesa and was both the A's and the Cubs spring training doctor. So, but the Pearsons, they had the A's contract to make uniforms. And so that's the store that you went to 50 years ago.
Well, I'll tell you what, those shirts are still around. Those jerseys are still being made, still available. Of course, they're not $100 anymore. They're about $250 to $300, but they are authentic, and they have to pay MLB their licensing fee. Before we change the subject even a little bit, let me just say that word on the street is that Ebbets Field Flannels has been sold. The company has been sold to Lids, Lids, a company that's been around that make baseball caps. And I don't know.
They do have the licensing.
Yes, they do.
To make it the high quality of caps available in major league caps. You can't get. So they'll work with Ebbets Field, and eventually it won't be 54; it'll be 74.
Whatever.
But you'll be able to get right. It'll go up. But we're two of the few people that would even look at some of this stuff.
Oh yeah.
And so I appreciate people with a passion, and you have a passion. But I want to talk about one of your other passions that we've never discussed on the airwaves, and that's electric trains.
Oh, yeah.
You posted a picture. When I was a kid, I had a Lionel train set. And, it was a pretty simple thing because it was so big that it took so much space that you really, like the miniature trains, you could do more with in those days. Mm-hmm. I want to ask you, what brought you to that? What was your original?
Well, at Christmas time, my older brother used to set up in our basement a modest layout with little buildings on it and stuff like that, and he would run his Lionel train around and stuff, and I was totally enthralled with that. And it's one of those stories that you hear from a lot of old men. I promised myself that when if I could ever afford something like that, I would get all of the trains that I ever want, blah, 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 blah. Well, that's true. In my case, that's true. When I was able to, I bought all of the trains that I couldn't afford when I was young. I got them all. It was fantastic. Then I found, this is like hard to explain. Lionel trains are these big, heavy, bulky trains that run on 3-rail track. The middle rail is the conductor of the electricity. It's picked up by rollers, which are underneath the diesel engine or the steam engine. I went further into Crazyville when I got older. I went into what's called scale trains, 2-rail, and they look exactly like real trains. Okay?
Right.
Same size, O scale, 1:48, 1/48 as large as a real locomotive or caboose or whatever. And that's what I went into that. And they don't run on rollers underneath with big flanges on the wheels so the engines and cars won't fall off the track. They have very slight, how can I say it? It's not for little kids, okay? It's not for little kids. It can't be dealt with in a rough way. Like Lionel trains, you could almost abuse them to a degree, and 50 years later, put it on a track and it'll still run. They were wonderful, wonderful toys, but that's just what they were, toys. The scale trains that I'm into now are not toys. They are works of art. They are, just that. And you can't treat them roughly like you could the old Lionel. But I am in love with trains. It's just amazing. They're fantastic. I have a lot of them. I even weather them with chalks and paints and airbrushes and stuff. I weather them to make them look old and rusty and 10 years on the line and all that stuff. It's a great, great hobby. It really, truly is. It's fantastic.
Well, this is the first time I've heard you speak of your hobby and your passion, and it's really great because whatever, like I say, if it were medical supplies and you were passionate about it, it would make a good podcast. You know what I'm saying? It's just, and it's the tone of your voice or one's voice when they speak of passion that I most enjoy hearing. And that's the best part of podcasting. You can't capture that in written words. If you want to interview somebody, you can't capture their enthusiasm, and it's just terrific, Peter. And you're also passionate about your lady, and that Linda's been a wonderful mate for you. And like me with Tally, it allows us, having a partner allows us to do what we do.
Oh, talk about lucky. You were just talking about the word lucky 5 minutes ago. I am number one on the list when it comes to that. There's something you left out. I also used to, I have stopped now the last few years. I used to also collect old yearbooks and scorecards, baseball bats, gloves, balls, all of that stuff. I was just a crazy nut for baseball. Now, I didn't mean to shortchange Tally and Linda, but I thought there was something missing before we went to that next thing. We just stay on baseball for one more minute. Because you know as well as I do, you've seen my yearbooks from the 40s and 50s, Brooklyn yearbooks, New York Giant yearbooks, stuff like that. I even have. I'm sitting here talking to you. If you could see me, I have a Boston Bruins sweater on. Now, hockey. They don't call their shirts jerseys; they call them sweaters. But I have a whole slew of hockey sweaters. I have NFL jerseys. I have minor league baseball stuff, major league baseball stuff. I have jackets. I have all that stuff, caps all over the place. It's actually, you talk about a passion. It borders on a sickness, really. I've only made myself stop buying all of this stuff very, very recently. Right.
It takes self-control, but
which I have very little of.
Well, we don't need if we work it right, we don't need much self-control. And if we keep the guilt out of it, that's another thing I was thinking about this morning. Nothing to feel guilty about.
Oh, no.
Do no harm, and you guys are doing it. And so, you know what? I think this brings us to completion.
Okay.
And I want to end it in a time that we can market this podcast. Things going through my head. It was perfect. The timing. I got to capture you as a passionate person, and wow, this was great for me, Peter.
Thank you for asking me, Ralph.
Okay, please come back on a regular basis, as you have been for all these many years. We're doing this like 7 years, long time.
Yeah.
And the thing is, we look back, but we also look forward. And that's what I appreciate about you, is that you're interested in the future of what's going on.
Sure.
so many people get wrapped up in the past that they forget the present and the future.
Yeah.
And I want to just say that you don't. And it's much appreciated by your friends. And thank you again.
Okay, Ralph, you're very welcome anytime.
Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. I'm Ralph Tycho, the weak link of it all, but I do get some damn interesting guests. Peter Trunk Sr. Nice talking to you, Peter.
Thanks again, Ralph. You have a nice holiday. Love to Tally.
You too, and love to Linda.
Thank you.
We didn't even talk about John's Pizza. When Tally and I went to New York, it's been 6 years
John's
ago
Pizza,
now.
yeah, on Bleecker Street. Well, that's another show. We'll do another show.
All right. Something to think about.
Yeah.
Thank you, Peter.
All
Thank
right.
you for listening, everybody. Adios and happy trails.
The proceeding has been a Comfortably Zoned network production. You are advised to keep your dreams wet, your humor dry, your children and grandchildren out of military recruiting offices and off the laps of clerics who wear dresses. Thank you for listening, everyone. Happy trails.